But I think that we should probably start with the AEW pay-per-view since it was yesterday. Everybody is talking about it. It was the best AEW pay-per-view I've ever seen. It was an excellent show, top to bottom. I mean, the only match, the match you would say was the worst match, wasn't even a bad match. It was the Hikaru Shida-Nyla Rose match. And it wasn't like it was bad, but it was one of those matches where they built to a perfect finish, and then they just kept going. And keeping going did not make the match better. It actually made the match worse. But I mean, outside of that, every single match on this show was good to great, including one of the greatest tag team matches I ever saw in my life. So, I guess get going.
All right, so from AEW Full Gear, November 8th, 2020. For the opener only, as it turns out, Don Callis joined the commentary crew. He was there because he's known Kenny Omega forever, and they're both from Winnipeg, so he's got that connection. But they also plugged Callis' connections, and he's still currently working for Impact Wrestling. So that's intriguing. And for one match, it was fine. He did a very, very good job. This isn't a knock on Callis, but it's not like AEW needed another commentator. They have got a three-man booth full-time. Taz still does some stuff. Jericho is there every time. So they have lots of guys on the mic. They didn't need one more, but for one match, it worked out well. The other thing about this from a production standpoint that was going on throughout the night is they got the big screen at Daly's place behind the ramp, so the hard cam was looking right at it, and they had some kind of wacky graphic going on there with flashing lights flying around, and I spent the entire show thinking fans were throwing garbage into the ring and realizing it was only graphics on the background screen. That was distracting. Less stuff on the background screen, please. Kenny Omega versus Hangman Page in the World Title Eliminator Tournament Final. So I don't know if they're letting more people into Daly's place these days or if they're just miking it better, but this is the best crowd reaction they've had like in the whole pandemic.
Well, I hope that this was...
I hope it's the latter. They're just miking it better.
Well, no, they had 1,000 people in the building. So I think this was more than they ever had.
All right.
But, yes. I mean, I thought that the first half of the show, the crowd was great, but actually it was right around that Hikaru Shida match. They kind of got tired, and that was actually what I was told from people that were there.
Yeah.
And it was a very long show, and they got tired, and it kind of hurt the matches at the end. Although it didn't hurt the matches much watching them. But if this would have been a crowd, if they would have had, 10,000 people in the building, this would be one of the greatest pay-per-views of all time. But even with 1,000 people, and even Tony Khan said this felt like a pay-per-view from before the pandemic. I think he said when we were in our prime.
So Omega and Page, they had a hell of a wrestling match. The best way to summarize this is just, while they had a great wrestling match, you could also tell they were there to have a great opener wrestling match and not a great show-stealing or great main event wrestling match. Like, they had a great match that very easily could have been a lot greater, if that makes any sense. So it went back and forth the whole way. There's not a lot of heel babyface shenanigans. There was not an extended heat segment. Just two guys doing wrestling moves and having them all look cool. There was actually one point where Kenny fucked something up. He went for the "you can't escape," the rolling fireman's carry into a springboard off the ropes. And he fucked it up, and rather than like panic and jump up and try to save it, he just laid there and like sold his knee because he's smart and he knows what to do. And when shit happens, you just roll with it and you don't panic and expose things. So about 20 minutes in, this had been a good wrestling match, and then there's there's the power bomb on the ramp and then the power bomb in the ring. And then they have a strike exchange, and I think Kenny hit a Jay Driller for 2, and that kicked off like the hottest 60 seconds of big moves I've seen all year. The Deadeye gets 2. That was really the peak of the match. Like 2 minutes later, Kenny's fighting for the One-Winged Angel. He had been fighting for it the entire match, not gotten it, and the first time he gets it, boom, finish over. Kenny Omega wins, and is your next challenger for whoever wins the main event. A very, very good opener.
I thought this match was fantastic. I thought this was Kenny Omega New Japan style match. Hangman looked great. I think that everybody was expecting that Kenny Omega was going to win, but I also think that everybody was expecting that Kenny Omega was going to turn on Hangman Page afterwards. And he did not. And I don't know where they're going, but the storyline is that Hangman Page was trying to get back into the world title picture, which he has not been in since he lost to Chris Jericho a year ago. Mm-hmm. And in his own interview, he said, if I don't win this match, All I've got is this bourbon. Because, in fact, he lost his two best friends.
Yes.
He lost his tag team partner.
Correct.
And now he was beaten by his tag team partner. So, in fact, he has nothing. Yeah. And the story, clearly, is all about the Hangman and the Young Bucks getting back together again at some point. And they want nothing to do with this guy. He has been shunned. And what I think is going to happen, what makes sense to me, is that down the road, this Kenny Omega character, who to me is absolutely a heel.
Yes.
But he worked as a babyface during this match.
He certainly did, yes.
And he came out and he was friendly with the Young Bucks later. I don't know if maybe, there's a lot of ways you can go, but I think ultimately Kenny Omega's going to turn and he's going to be destroying the Hangman, and the Young Bucks are going to make the save for the Hangman. And you're going to turn Kenny Omega and get Hangman and the Young Bucks back together all in one angle. That's where I think they're going. You could even do it where Kenny Omega joins FTR. Kenny Omega screws the Young Bucks. FTR wins the titles back. That's Kenny's heel turn. Hangman comes out. They're destroying him, and the Young Bucks make the save. There's a lot of ways you can go, but I think that's where they're going. But that's down the road. I thought this was a great step in this long-term story.
In the short term for Omega, think about how big of a douche he's been just calling himself a single star and Hangman Page merely a tag team wrestler for the past couple of months. Now he's beaten him, and he beat him fair and square with a wrestling move. There was zero shenanigans, clean as a sheet, and he's going to be an even bigger douche about it. You just know. So,
I did like also for the finish where he's got him up on his shoulders and he's reaching up to try to get his head down for the one-winged angel, and Page is fighting it off, but Kenny got him.
Yes.
Got a hold of his head and he hit the move, and that was the end of that.
Yes,
Love this match.
It's one of those things that it sounds so simple when you say it here on a podcast if you weren't watching the show. When you actually watch it, it is so effective, making him struggle to hit that move before he finally gets it. And then once he gets it, good night. That's the match. Yes, that was very, very good. But I must say, it was not as good as the Young Bucks versus FTR. This match was so fucking dope. That's all I can say. So they start off just doing, and we talked about this because the injury to Matt's leg, both kayfabe and shoot, if you will. So they did the most oldest school tag match I've seen in so damn long. They're doing leg takedowns and headlock takeovers and arm drags and arm bars and head scissors. I'm just crying. It makes me so happy. So Matt's got the bad ankle going in. And then very early on in the match, there's a spot where Dax goes to punch him outside the ring, but Matt dodges, and Dax's hand punches the post. And now his hand is bleeding. And he runs over to Doc Samson, and they tape it up so he can continue, but now he's got a bad hand throughout the match. And so whenever, for the next close to 30 minutes, however long this went, whenever one team needs the other to be in trouble, you just kick Matt in the foot or go to work on that hand. And it's instant cut off, and it all makes sense. So both guys are fighting through at less than 100%. The other story here is you have the team that I think how should I put this? You have the team that loves old school tag teams more than anyone else ever, and the team that has kind of revolutionized tag team wrestling more than anyone else in the past decade. And so they told like a historical story of tag team wrestling in this match. They covered my life as a tag team wrestling fan here by hitting the key moves of all the great tag teams of the past 30 years in order. They went from the 1980s with the Heart Attack and the Midnight Rocker Hurricane Ranas to the 90s with the Hardy Boys stuff and the Dudleys. To the 2000s, there wasn't that much, but then they got in the 2010s with DIY, the meeting in the middle, the tribute to FTR's old rivals there. It's just beautiful, beautiful stuff as it's going on. So the third great story behind the dueling injuries and the love letter to tag team wrestling is that in the end, it comes down to Dax Harwood, who does not have his hand injured, so he's 100% there. It's him and Matt, who of course has the bad leg. Nick Jackson has been taken out, and Dax has been taken. Cash. No, Yeah, Dax has been taking out Cassius in the ring. That is correct. And Cash right now is by far the best off in this match. He's standing tall. He's the biggest dude in this match. He can win this at any time he wants. But his ego gets the best of him. And rather than just win, doing what they do, finishing off this one-legged goof once and for all, making sure they never challenge for the titles ever again, he has to try to beat them at their game. He must not use his fists. He must try a flip. And he tries a springboard 450, but Matt dodges. Matt hits a bad foot super kick to win the match. They are the tag team champions. The stip does not have to be followed up on now because they won. So that's how they got out of it. They had him win. Everything set up everything else. Everything played in everything else. Just a thing of absolute beauty. I would say this was the best tag team match I've seen all year, except I saw the Bucks' other pay-per-view tag team match earlier in the year when they faced Omega and Page. That was still better than this one. But other than that, I think this was second best. This ruled.
Dude, I got to watch the one earlier in the year again because when this was over, I thought this one was better. Like, what I explained last night was when I watched the match with Hangman and Omega, when it was over, I was pretty sure it was the greatest tag team match I'd ever seen. But I do remember that when I was watching it, there were moments where I felt, remember I explained this, I felt nothing was happening, and you had an explanation for why this was. I should probably go back and watch it again.
Right.
I didn't have an instant of that in this 28-minute match. I was into this match for 28 minutes. 12,000 seconds or whatever it was. 1,200 seconds, however many it was. Every instant, I was into this match. The story that they told, I mean, I don't even know if this was why this happened, but you had no flips, just fists against flips. And granted, it's a tag team match, but one of the guys had a bad leg, so he couldn't do flips. And one of the guys on the other team hit the post, and so he couldn't punch.
That's right, no fists.
Yes, no fists. So it comes down to the end, and not only did this idiot, and he's a heel, that's his role, is to be an idiot, decide I'm going to do a fucking flip, I'm going to show off, I'm going to beat these young bucks at their own game. He does a flip, he misses, and it wasn't even a super kick just with the bad foot. It was a bad barefoot. There's no padding. There's no nothing. You know what a barefoot is like? It's like a fist. So really the story, quite frankly, is that FTR tried to beat the Bucks at their own game by doing what they're not good at, and they failed, and the Bucks beat them at their own game.
I suppose that's true.
They hit him with a bare foot, which may as well be a bare fist. So anyway.
No flips, just feet.
Everyone in this match was unbelievable.
Yeah.
FTR is the greatest. Matt's selling, unbelievable. Like, everyone knows that Matt is really hurt, but the key is he ain't that hurt. Like, he got hurt a long time ago. I shouldn't say he's not that hurt. He got hurt a long time ago, and he's been rehabbing, and he's been working through it. And suffice to say, if he was badly hurt and not capable of doing this match, he wouldn't have done this match. So, a lot of what you saw in there was just legitimate selling. Yes, he has a bad knee, but his selling was unbelievable. And there shouldn't be anybody that watches a lot of Young Bucks matches that doesn't know that Matt's selling is unbelievable because he fucking sold that bad back, which, as I mentioned a few days ago, I don't even think his back was ever hurt. I'm pretty sure that from start to finish, that was a fake back injury the entire time. And pretty much everybody believes it's real. I don't even think it ever was. So then, the other person I got to mention is Nick Jackson. I'm going to make everybody very upset at me. So before you get upset, just listen very carefully, okay? My favorite wrestler growing up was Shawn Michaels. He was the greatest. And granted, I mean, if you really look through history, he wasn't the greatest. But to me as a kid, and even to me as a worker, like, there was nobody better than Shawn Michaels. And a lot of that was nobody could move like this guy. Mm-hmm. Nobody was as smooth in the ring as this guy. Nobody could go in there and just make it look so easy when it's not easy.
Yep.
And for 35 years, I guess it'd be about 30 years, ever since I started watching Shawn Michaels, I've just been waiting for like one guy to come along. Can one guy come along that can move like this guy in the ring and work. And I just never saw that guy. And there'd always be like the Dolph Ziggler, and he'd try to be Shawn Michaels, and he could never be Shawn Michaels. And my whole fucking career, I was trying to be Shawn Michaels, and I could never be Shawn Michaels. And trust me, there were great guys like Shawn Michaels. Like, one of the closest I ever saw was Tanahashi. You watch Tanahashi in the ring, very much like Shawn Michaels. The way that he moves, how effortless he makes everything look, how smooth he makes it look. But the fact of the matter is, after 30 fucking years, I think it's Nick Jackson.
He's just as good a name as any.
This fucking guy is so good. And he makes everything look so easy. And he's so smooth. And it looks like he's not even trying. But everything he does looks fucking fantastic. And he's different from Shawn Michaels. He does shit that Shawn Michaels never did. And Shawn Michaels never would have tried to do. They're not the same guy. But I think that Nick Jackson may be the closest that I have ever seen that does that Shawn Michaels style that I grew up loving and always wanted to do and was always just waiting for somebody else to come along and please do it because Shawn's out of here. And I think it's Nick Jackson. And that's the fucking highest praise I think I can give anybody. So I love this match with all my heart. It was the greatest. Go watch it if you haven't.
Yeah, I want to say more about this too, actually. There's more stuff that I missed going over the big details. So they had, as noted, an old school tag team match, which means, of course, there is a heat segment. Matt's running wild, but makes a mistake, sticks to his game plan too much, tries a moonsault, and even though he lands on his feet, he starts selling his ankle, and Dax yanks him throat first into the ropes. So, okay, we got the heat now. We got to cut him off. So FTR is so good at having this innate sense of exactly how to pace their heat segment. They're working their ass off. It's not slow, it's not boring, but it's slower than it was before. There's a definite sense that we're entering a new phase of the match now, a new chapter of the story. It's changed from what's happened before, and it's changing from what's going to happen next. But they managed to do it, and this is much, much, much easier said than done. They do it without ever getting to the point where you can tell, oh, they're just laying there to set up the heat. They're never, ever just laying there. They're always doing stuff. And they're walking that fine line, that very, very fine line between setting up the next high spot or high moment of the match, wherever it is, and just dipping below where you lose interest. Because I never lost interest, not once.
Not for 1 second in this match did I lose interest.
They grab a hold and they work the hold. They're not just sitting there in holds, they're working at it, but they also know exactly how long to keep the hold on before, okay, I'm going to let him go. We'll do a double team or tease a tag or something. Everything happens exactly when it should. And whether this is a kind of pro wrestling ESP they were born with, or whether it's from I suspect years and years and hours of studying tape after tape after tape after tape after tape, either way, it works. And there's no one now doing it as well as they do, and very, 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 very few that I've ever seen. They are one of the best tag teams I've ever seen, full stop. Yes, thumbs up. Highly recommend it. Go watch that. So they win. The Bucks do. They're the World Tag Team Champions. Omega runs out to celebrate with his old friends, and they're hanging out together. And FTR, like they gather themselves on the ramp. And for a brief moment, the two teams make eye contact, and you think, oh, they're going to do the handshake spot. But no, fuck that. And FTR sneer, and they leave in defeat. We'll get them some other time. So the Bucks and Omega are still partying, and they cut to a wide shot, and there is a hominid in the good guy entranceway. That's really all I can see. Now, obviously, it's Hangman Page, but they never did a close-up. The announcers barely acknowledged him. I don't think they ever said who it was. If anything, it was actually too subtle, which is something I very rarely say.
It was too subtle because I was reviewing the show today, and I said, notice, no Hangman. And that's when I had everybody tell me, actually, Hangman was in the deal. So I actually didn't even notice it.
All they needed was, because we saw him. There's a reason the cameraman might have seen him. He didn't need to run down there, but yes. Anyway, so this is all to be continued as this very complicated four-way relationship.
The other thing, too, is
chapters.
I didn't notice that the Hangman was there, and it was later brought to my attention. But whether you saw him in there or not, it's the same story. You either saw him as the odd man out, or you didn't see him, and you knew that he was the odd man out.
That's true. All right. Matt Hardy versus Sammy Guevara, the final... I beg your pardon. The Elite Deletion. So, my gut reaction to all of this, when all this is said and done, is that they have now finally run out of ideas for the Hardy compound. There was like 2 original things in this 20-minute segment or whatever it was. Most of it was they just did a match at the compound. It's Matt and Sammy. They're doing moves in the grass and in the woods, and then in a ring they start doing moves. And hey, I will say this, no one died that I can tell. So hats off to the 2 of them. But then Santana and Ortiz do a run-in, and they just do a wrestling match, and Private Party makes a save, and they're doing wrestling stuff. It was just stuff done in an unusual environment, but the actual stuff being done was something you would see in any pro wrestling match. I was not sure whether I liked commentary during this or not, because the prior Hardy compound stuff in other promotions usually has had no commentary, and I think it was probably better for it on the whole. But having Excalibur there to explain things like the Scepter of Mephistopheles probably helped. For those who do not have an encyclopedic knowledge of Hardy compound lore, Skarsgård showed up. There's the Lake of Reincarnation. The most original stuff they did actually was they go to... they're doing Roman candle stuff, which we've seen them do 100 times before. And they're brawling by the lake, and there's a joke about old dudes and mud shows. And a mystery man shows up with the Hurricane. Because last time this character was seen in any promotion, he was kidnapped at the Hardy compound 2 years ago and never rescued. So it's Gangrel under the mask. He kidnapped the Hurricane because he was Matt Hardy's first mentor, and Matt was never loyal to him. And then Gangrel's just doing wrestling moves. Hurricane goes into the lake. He comes back as ace reporter Gregory Helms, and then his question for Sammy is your rivalry with Matt Hardy cursed, or are you just a klutz? Okay, that was funny. He gets thrown back into the drink, and so Matt and Sammy are like doing fake brawling through the woods. You can hear one guy in the crowd shouting boring. They get to the Dome of Deletion, which is just Matt's garage. There's a ring in there and a ladder and chairs and stuff. And they do some stuff, and Sammy unties the ropes and chokes him with him for a while. And there's music playing for this segment. And then there's a spear through a table on the floor. And they did this very creatively, which is good because I don't want anyone to die. But Matt charges and does the spear out of the ring, off the apron, through the table. And the camera's on the side of the ring so you can't see them land. Obviously, they go through the table, and when the camera gets over there, now Sammy is lying in a pool of blood. And Matt hits the Concerto of Death, and I guess this is now supposed to be a very deathly serious angle. And Private Party shows up. They throw Sammy into a trash can. I don't know where Gangrel or Santana or Ortiz went. They put the garbage truck into Senor Benjamin's truck, or the garbage can into Senor Benjamin's truck, and drives away, and that's that.
Dude, am I the only one? I love this match. I'm a sucker for shit like this. So first off, the whole story of the match, the conclusion of the match at the end, is that Matt Hardy got his revenge for everything that Sammy did that almost killed him. He speared him through the ropes through the table, which is what they tried to do at the pay-per-view, and Matt got knocked out for 44 seconds. Sammy's lying there. He's got the pool of blood under his head. It's the same fucking thing. And then Matt gets the chair because Sammy had accidentally thrown the chair at him and busted his fucking head open. And he bonks him and he bings him in the head with the chair, which, by the way, looked like he fucking killed him. And so he gets his big 2 revenge spots, and then he wins the match. We had all of the callbacks. We had a fucking callback to the Hurricane from 2 fucking years ago. We had a wrestling ring. I mean, every time there's a wrestling ring anywhere, I mentioned it every time. It's a fucking magnet. You could be having a match on the goddamn moon, and if a ring shows up, the wrestlers will be drawn to the ring, and so they're fucking doing high spots in a ring in the fucking woods. And who is out there? Well, Santana and Ortiz and Private Party, because it has been established that Matt Hardy and Private Party are buddies, and Private Party has been feuding with Santana and Ortiz. So essentially what you have is you have Santana, Ortiz, and Sammy all at the compound, which actually plays into the MJF Jericho match, where MJF wins, and he has won the right to enter the inner circle. But there were 2 guys that didn't want him in the inner circle. It's Ortiz and Sammy, and guess what? They're not there to stop it. because they happen to be at the Hardy compound getting deleted by Matt Hardy. So I enjoyed this immensely. Listen, it's a wrestling show, and if you don't like it, that's fine. I mean, there have been cinematic matches that I didn't like, but I was never bored. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought it was very creative. It's everything that I talked about loving when we were watching maybe you didn't watch it, but the Talkin' Shop-A-Mania 1. It's pro wrestling. Bunch of goofy stories, dudes fighting. I liked it. I gave it 2 thumbs up.
And the main event, Jon Moxley versus Eddie Kingston in an I Quit match for the AEW title. Well, they hit each other with weapons a lot. They tortured each other with weapons a lot. And in the end, one of the guys quit, allegedly. There was no mic. I was excited after the build of this. I figured, I Quit matches is usually a live mic in the ring. And what you could hear these guys say to each other during the match was what I was most intrigued about. But they did not do any of that. Moxley hit him with a barbed wire bat some. Eddie had some suplexes. And there were like tacks and chairs and stuff used. And very little of it was actually teased. They just grabbed a weapon, hit him with it, grabbed another weapon, did something else. The closest they came to a teasing, I guess there was some delay in the thumbtacks being used, and then when Eddie grabs the rubbing alcohol, it's just sitting in the ring, and they show a close-up of that several times, and then he just pours it on John, and John screams, and then nothing happens. They just move on, and Moxley wraps barbed wire around his arm, does a bulldog choke with that, and the match just ends, and I am to be told that Eddie quit. And if you like geek show violence, this is the match for you. I thought there was very little actual wrestling or storytelling or setup or payoff going on here. It was just violence for the sake of violence.
I thought this match was awesome, and I do not like geeks show stuff, but there were a lot of things going on here. Obviously, if you watched the build-up to this, if you watched the match, there were a few ideas here, and one of them was that this Eddie Kingston guy, this badass, this outlaw, he is going to quit. But the idea was they did this match in such a way that when this guy finally gave up, he was more over as a babyface than he was going into this match, in part because he finally gave up there at the end. These fans went crazy for this guy after the match. They were dying for him to shake Jon Moxley's hand, and he just slinks off because it is not time for Eddie Kingston to turn babyface yet. The other thing, which we've mentioned a million times, is that, and am I the only one that notices this? Jon Moxley calls his shot before every fucking world title match.
John Moxley's promos are spoilers.
He has not called his shot yet.
Yes.
What did he say? Protect your neck. And in fact, that was the finish of this match. He put him in the barbed wire bulldog choke, and the guy gave up. And if you'll notice, Vinny, you said there was very little wrestling in this match. There was very little whatever. Mm-hmm. These Jon Moxley matches, I'm starting to figure out what's going on here. So, Moxley does all of these promos before these matches. And he basically tells you the story of the match.
Yes.
Okay. So by doing that, he gets in the ring, and most of the job is already done. The guy already told us what was going to happen. He said, I'm going to go in there. I'm going to take you to a place you've never been before. It's going to be unrepentant violence. And in the end, you're going to give up. That's exactly what fucking happened.
That's how it went down.
And it's the same thing in all of his different matches. He said the same thing before the MJF match. I'm going to take you to the deep waters and everything. So he's basically he's doing half the job before he even gets into the ring. And the stories of the matches are all great because you already know the story going in. You already know what's going to happen. And I, personally, I thought that this was a far superior I Quit match to the one where the ref's got the mic, you do a move on the guy, the ref goes, do you give up? The guy goes, no. And then you get back. It's like, it's up and down, it's up and down, and it's up and down. This one was like, these two fucking guys are going to kill each other for 15 minutes. There's no... What psychology is there when you're going in to kill each other? It's a bunch of shit that you hit each other with, and you throw each other in thumbtacks, and they did everything but light each other on fire. The ref never, stopped the action. Wait, hold on.
No.
Don't pour those thumbtacks, buddy. Let me ask this fool if he quits yet. Oh, you don't quit? Okay, pour the thumbtacks. No downtime. There was two guys having a brutal fight to the death, and the referee is just there because maybe at some point, some fucking guy's going to be wrapped up in thumbtacks and just go, I've had enough! And that was, in fact, the finish of the match. He put the guy in the bulldog choke after he warned him, by the way, there is no other way out. And Kingston flips him off, and Moxley wraps the thing around his arm, and he chokes the guy out, and quite frankly, Eddie Kingston knows, God damn it, there is no other fucking way out. He didn't say it, but if he's ever going to see his mother again, he's got to give up. And he did. And even though he quit, he still had his pride, and he refused to shake this fucker's hand, and he slinked off, and everybody sees that guy going away, and they're begging for this motherfucker to turn babyface. I don't like these kinds of matches. I hate puncture wounds. I fucking hate the thumbtacks. I swear to God, I watch these matches, and all I think is, now's the time, and I go up on Twitter, and Renee has just tweeted. I know every time when she's going to tweet. Every fucking time. And I knew when she was going to tweet during this one, and it's not my jam, but you know what? If the fucking story is Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley in an I Quit match, there ain't no other fucking match you can do. Otherwise, it's bullshit, and it's a letdown. And they gave you the exact match you should have been expecting. And if not, I don't know what you were fucking expecting from these two. It was an I Quit battle. I liked it a lot.
So there you go. Afterwards, as you noted, Eddie refused. Moxley tried to help Eddie to his feet, which I loved, actually, because their issue has been settled now. They can go back to being friends, but Eddie's not having it. And then Omega came out to confront Moxley. Moxley invited him in the ring, and Omega's like, no, I want no part of this bullshit. That made me laugh.
Well, that's the key, because the last time they did the match, they had to do Moxley's match, and Omega lost. And now it's like, well, now we're going to have a wrestling match, motherfucker. So get this shit out of here. We're going to grapple.
That was awesome. So there you go. I hope to watch the rest of this maybe by Tuesday, more likely by Thursday night we review Dynamite. So that's
I would also like to say that what I also loved is Moxley beats this guy, barbed wire on his arm, chokes him out. There's blood and puncture wounds everywhere. This guy's got 2 fucking thumbtacks right in his forehead that haven't come out yet. And he's all pumped full of adrenaline. He looks in the camera, and he screams, "That's what a champion is made of! Blood and guts!" I thought, that was the biggest fuck you to WWE. That is well-deserved.
That too. It's also, it is a fuck you to WWE. It is also just Jon Moxley being Jon Moxley. But these can both be true.
People are going to be mad at me for that, but dude, guys remember the Monday Night Wars where... I mean, I won't mention all the things that Vince McMahon went back on, but there was a lot of things he went back on. But he, wrote letters to Ted Turner about this blading is so
barbaric
blading, and he's crying about this and that. And then, a year later, Paul Heyman, he's watching ECW, and he's like, fuck it, bring the blade out. Everyone's cutting themselves left and right. It's hypocritical, is what it is.
The McMahon family.
If this fucking guy didn't have spot... Dude... He wanted fucking blood for a Brock Lesnar-Randy Orton match, but because they're sponsors and he can't let these fuckers cut themselves, he just has fucking Brock go in there and concuss this guy with fucking legit forearms to bust him open. I mean, fucking come on. Yeah. Get out of here, you dork. Either do it or shut the fuck up. Don't complain about it. If you want blood and guts, bro, you can have everyone cut themselves with razor blades. You can do that if you want to. But if you don't want to, then shut up about it. It's fucking wrestling here. What do you think this is? Ballet?